Hello everybody. Okay, so we usually do a free call at this time, but we didn't get any questions this week. So I wanted to do a training instead. So we're going to do a training which is going to talk all about the art of making daily sales, which I have been doing this month. I usually do make pretty regular, consistent sales throughout a month, but I specifically changed what I was doing at the start of June compared to May and all the months previously. Because that's when I had a big breakthrough around my business. I started changing a lot of how I was doing things, and it's been working really well. So I want to share what has kind of happened for the first 15 days of the month. And I'm going to talk a lot about my business as well as books in this. So I get that, you want to take this and apply it to books. I promise you will be able to, but I want to give you the full rounded picture because obviously this is how I'm testing it, this is how I'm doing it, and I want to be completely transparent and honest in how I'm doing this. So this really stood out to me the other day as well, because I was with my boyfriend on Wednesday and we went out to dinner, and every time I checked my phone, which wasn't a lot because I try to be very present when I'm with people, but I think I checked my phone when I got to his house, once when he went to pay, once before we went to bed, and it was like every single time I checked my phone, I'd made a sale. And I was kind of like, every time I look at my phone, like there's another sale, this is crazy. So on Wednesday specifically, this was one day of the month, I remember I sold 2 programs at 2 different times, which are new programs that I've only talked about for a week or so. I sold a book. I sold I got reoccurring revenue from 2 offers. So that's also, part of the strategy. And funnily enough, on this day, my website was down as well, which I thought I wasn't going to make any sales on this day. Like, I kind of woke up, I knew the things I wanted to talk about. I had strategies in place to sell things in the back end, and my whole website went down, and I thought, oh, no one's going to be able to buy anything today because they won't be able to get the sales link. So unless they DM me, that's not going to happen. Oh well. And I still made 4 sales that day. So I'm like, okay. So clearly this is working quite well. So I have lots of notes. I apologize. I'm going to be looking over here a lot because I really want to specifically spell out all the things I've been doing, and I really took care to take track of everything, and I want to make sure you get the whole thing. So the first shift that I made, which I'm still kind of experimenting on getting this to be quite as balanced as I want it to be, because I'm a bit of a perfectionist and I'm a bit rigid, and you might be totally different in personality, so this might work a bit better for you. But for me, I am drawn to simple. I am drawn to plan ahead 3 months, know exactly what I'm doing, make it really easy, don't complicate things, and then I tend to go complicate things anyway. But I really I need it to make sense, right? I'm that kind of person. So it was a bit of an edge for me to go, I'm going to sell multiple things at once. And at first I thought, that's going to be so chaotic. That's going to be really insane. I don't know how I'm going to pull that off. I think my brain will overload. Turns out it's been pretty easy to do, and it has been really helpful in getting sales to happen every day. Because what I realized, especially in regards to authorship, is that authors are at all different stages of their journey, right? So of course, if you're just focused on selling, say, a publishing program, there's only going to be so many people who are ready for that step. And then you're going to have people who are more focused on marketing or more focused on writing, and it's not really going to meet everyone where they're at. So by me starting to sell multiple things at once, it gave people more opportunities to jump in and work with me now. And this also translates to books. If you have a backlist, if you have books that are coming out, selling multiple things at once can actually work really well, because again, it gives people more opportunities to start reading your books. I got a DM the other day from someone who was like, I want to start reading your books and I don't know where to start, right? She was like, I see that you have a couple of series. I don't know which one's the first in every series. Can you point me in the right direction? So I told her, this is the first book in this series. This is what it's about. This is the first book in this series. This is what it's about. So I really told her, these are your options. Let me know which one you want to start with. And she was like, thanks, I'll go check them out. So it's if you have multiple things, people have multiple opportunities to jump into your world, start reading your stuff, start liking your stuff, and then want to go on and buy everything else that you have. So if you can get into more of the space of yes, you're launching a book, yes, you have something up and coming, and you have a strategy behind that to establish it in the market, but then you also have the strategy of selling every day with your backlist. You have the strategy of promoting other titles. That is going to serve you so well in having more opportunities for people to come in and buy your stuff, right? So that is a shift that I made, is I started to sell multiple things at once. And if I give you the rundown of what I'm selling this month, my original plan was to just sell one-on-one, which I'm really glad I didn't do that because that would have failed miserably. But I'm selling my one-on-one. I'm selling my writing workshop. I have 2 of these that are happening at the end of the month in public, in person. So I've already been paid to do those. I'm selling my books at the moment. I'm planning on selling lots of books at the event and just selling books throughout the month. And I'm selling 2 new programs that I was wanting to run but didn't plan on starting to sell till a bit later in the year. And I thought, whatever, let's just do it now as a pre-sale. And it's working really well. So those are the things I'm selling right now. I'm selling in multiple ways. So again, I used to be like, plan out all my sales in advance, sell in my posts, sell in my emails, but schedule it all in advance, right? Now I'm really starting to balance the energy of like, I have things scheduled, I have sales systems and funnels that work, but then I also sell actively. And that's something I've really been practicing this month as a strategy because I wanted to get better at like selling presently in the moment and responding to what people are actually asking me for. So a lot of this, I'm going to go into the strategy part of it, but essentially like I'm selling through my posts, I'm selling through my stories, I'm selling through email, I'm selling through live trainings, and a lot of these I batch in advance as well, so they're not actually live, but I record them live and then I put them out later. And then I sell through podcast episodes. So those are 5 different ways at the moment, five that I'm selling. But then I also have like, I plan to sell books at the event. I have catalogs that I've prepared in advance. There's other things that I have going on that are just not quite working yet. And so strategy-wise, like half of this is passive, half of this is active. So passively, like I have the podcast episodes. They are scheduled right through to August, and I've started putting a mid-roll in the episodes. So that means that whatever topic we're talking about, I'm going to talk about a relevant offer. And I've really taken care to make sure that some of my offers are going to be evergreen so that you can jump in at any time. And that means if you're watching the episode like a year later, you can still jump into that offer, right? So I'm kind of setting myself up for future sales in that way as well. I'm also selling through batch content. So this applies also to my books where I put all this, I create all this content in advance for all of my brands. And I do this for 𝗙𝗂𝗧𝗏, I do it for Tara Quinn, I do it for Paperback Kingdom, I do it for Pagan Science Coaching. So I do it for at least 4 brands, right? And for the Paperback Podcast, so 5. But I don't really sell through that one, so it doesn't really count, but I still do that. And essentially, like in this batch content, I'm thinking about, okay, how can this lead to a sale? Even if it's a value piece of content, I'm still thinking about how can I leverage this to talk about my offer later. So I'm still thinking about that, and I'm really planning in advance. And that means if I'm like, okay, I need to put out a post to promote my book today, and it's going to be a reel, and I'm going to tease a snippet from a book, I'm obviously going to talk about that book. I'm obviously going to sell that book that day, right? I'm going to go on my stories and be like, this is where you can buy it, or I'm going to make sure it leads back to my sales funnel in the caption, or something like that. It's going to make sense, right? It's kind of like hand in hand where the stuff is ready to go. I don't have to create it in the moment, but then I can pull it and I can just talk about that thing actively on the day, and that makes sense. I also have a lot of funnels. So for my evergreen courses specifically, I have funnels that I'm setting up through email that sell things in the background. I have a lot of free things that I put out that lead to eventual sales, and sometimes those convert randomly. Like, I mean, someone will have gone through them, maybe a week or so before, and I'll get a sale out of nowhere, and it's like, oh, that thing converted. And it's just like stuff that happens in the background. So there's that kind of aspect to it. And then a lot of it is active. So the active stuff that I've been doing is trying to sell at least 1 thing every day on stories. That has been my challenge to myself. Ideally, I go in and sell 3 things every day on stories, and that's a really good day for me. But because I get busy, if I sell 1 thing, I'm pretty happy. And this has been more of like, also an edge for me to stop hiding my sales in my free value content, which you may have noticed I've been doing for some years, is like, I'll always like do a training first and then sell you something, or I'll do a podcast and then sell you something, or it'll be like that. Or even in a post, it'll be like, here's lots of great value in a post, but then here's the relevant offer. I'm really challenging myself to just put offers out there and be like, here's the offer. If you want to join, you're invited. This is what it's all about, and not do anything else, right? And that has been a bit of a game changer for me, because I've had to do mindset work around like, people actually just want to hear about my offers, right? And I've realized that as a consumer as well, as like, I don't want to go looking for people's offers. Like I want to buy from people, but I also would hate to have to listen to a 25-minute podcast episode just to hear what they're selling, or have to spend my time and energy watching a training just to hear what they're selling. Like sometimes I just want to know what they're selling. So I really challenge myself, like, this is the way that I'm going to do active daily sales, is get on stories every day, pick an offer, put it out there, and just leave it for people to buy. And it's been a bit scary, and I've had to build up a habit around that, but it's been working really well because obviously people now know this is what I have. You can jump in. I've gotten a lot more awareness around my one-on-one this way. I've had a lot of people say, I've been seeing your one-on-one, I kind of want to work with you. I've had at least 2 people reach out about one-on-one this month when I didn't hear about it for 6 months, you know? So it's very, very helpful. So again, you can do this with books. It's about finding the way that you feel good selling books. We're going to talk about that later. But essentially, same thing. Like if you're talking about a certain book on a day, sell the freaking book. Just put it out there. Just say this is where you can buy it. Put the link in your stories. I'm going to start to do this more actively as the month goes on because I'm building up the habit as I go. But that's definitely something I'm going to be experimenting with as well. Let's see. So it's also been like getting my energy behind the thing I'm selling. So it's like, again, there's only so much you can plan ahead for. At a point, I'm starting to really respond to what I'm getting in the front end, and that's been helpful. Like, for example, on Tuesday, I got the catalogs for my books, for my events, and I thought this is a perfect time to talk about daily sales. This is a perfect time to talk about selling your books. And I was like, I'm definitely going to go on today and talk a bit about selling books and ways you can do that before I talk about royalties that rise. And that was something that I was like, I can do that today because the catalogs arrived, not because I was like, I'm going to do that anyway. It was like, this was just something I'm excited that the catalogs are here. I obviously want to show them off. So obviously it's a good segue, right? So it's about figuring out like, what is something you actually want to talk about today that's going to lead to you selling something, whether that be your book. Maybe you are editing something or you're writing a scene and you're really excited about it and you have pre-orders up for that book. Like it's not coming out anytime soon, but you have pre-orders ready. You can literally be like, working on this scene today, don't forget to pre-order. Here's the link in your stories. Really simple, right? But it's like, that makes sense because you're embodying it. This is a really big thing, right? You have to embody what you're actually selling. So it's a little bit different when it goes to services versus books. But obviously, I'm not going to sell a sales program if I'm not selling stuff, right? Like I have to be able to go, I'm selling stuff and I'm going to teach you how to sell stuff, right? That's obviously going to be in alignment and embodied. Otherwise, it's going to be really hard for me to show up every day and go, I can totally teach you how to sell, but I don't know what to even say on this. I don't know how to talk to you about this. I don't know what to do about this because I'm not selling shit, right? That would be totally out of alignment. And of course, it's going to feel hard to sell. So it makes sense that if I'm selling books, I'm going to go on and talk about royalties and rise. If I'm getting questions around business stuff and I have the answers, I'm going to go on and talk about that and talk about the profit playground, right? Those are the things that I'm selling at the moment, but it makes sense because it's embodied, right? So with your books, it's the same thing. It's like if you're working on the book that's going to come out, you can obviously talk about that book because you're excited, it's in alignment, it's embodied. If you have a backlist title that you recently released and you're still excited about it, you've been getting good reviews, for example. Like, let's say someone reaches out that day and tells you how much they love the book. Perfect. You take that, you take a screenshot, and you sell that book again in your stories. It's like, I just got this great response from a reader. So glad you guys are loving it. Here's where you can buy the book, right? So easy. But you have to be willing to kind of wake up every day. And this is the next thing I've been doing, is I've been creating a sales list every day. And instead of like letting my passive sales do it for me, I've been like, every day, what are some ways I want to sell today? What are some things that have happened that I can respond to? What are some things that I can show up and do? What are some things I want to do? What am I feeling excited to do? What do I want to talk about today? Sometimes I don't really know how I'm going to sell, so I just decide I want to sell this program somehow today. And then I might listen to a podcast and get a really inspired idea for like, oh, I want to talk about this aspect of my coaching, or I want to talk about this part of my book. And that helps me to figure out this is what I want to say about it today. So sometimes it's about finding the inspirational triggers that help you to think about the thing you're trying to sell as well. But that's also a helpful activity that you can do. Okay, so I also want to go through like different strategies. I know I talked a little bit about strategy, but specifically for all the things I'm selling, right? So I actually forgot something as well. Like I'm not going to talk too much about this, but like I said, I have funnels that are set up that can sell lots of things that I have, like bundles and things. So sometimes I'll make sales on those, but it's not all the time. So we're going to leave that one out, but that could obviously happen throughout the month. Essentially the things I'm focusing on, right? I have my evergreen courses. So I have at least 3 of these and they can be bought at any time. And so ways I sold this. So towards the end of May, going into June, I had a bundle, which I made a sale on. And that was an inspired idea. I was like, let's bundle these together for a limited time. And someone bought because I was like, let's put that out there. So that's a way I made a sale. But then essentially my strategy with the evergreen stuff at the moment is I have a freebie that goes into a funnel. but then I also sell it through podcasts and live streams essentially, because I have the mid-rolls and I have like the topics planned around the courses and stuff. I basically look at the course content and go, what is a thing in this course that I want to talk about in a live stream, in a live training that is going to help people, that would then make sense for me to tell people this program exists, right? So I kind of plan it out that way, and I make sure that I'm giving free value content every week, but then there's an opportunity to work with me further. So that's the evergreen stuff. On one-on-one, it looks a bit different. So my main goal before the month, before I decided to switch everything, was I was just going to have feed content going out about my one-on-one, and I was going to jump on stories and talk about it. And I did that for 1 week, and I got super bored. So I was like, we're not going to do that, because otherwise this is not going to happen. So instead, what I've been doing with one-on-one is I have the feed content going out about it for a little while, but I'm also challenging myself to show up twice a week to talk about one-on-one. And that's what I'm doing there, and that's all I'm doing. And I also have 2 emails going out a week, but they are pre-scheduled. So, you know, inquiries will come in as I talk about it, but I'm not really attached to like, I have to sell one-on-one or I'm not going to make sales. It's like, when people are ready, they'll jump into one-on-one. I just need to keep making sure people know it exists and it's available, right? And so I'm really glad I didn't just sell one-on-one, because I only would have made a sale so far, and I've definitely made more sales doing more. I also have the Inspired program. So that was the Profit Playground and Royalties that Rise, which are 2 programs that I decided to launch early. And essentially, this is where I'm putting more focus into stories. I'm really talking more about like more times throughout the week, just because they're more fun for me to sell at the moment. So I'm just leaning into that energy. And I'm also selling them where it makes sense. Like if I have a training where I'm talking about something, I will obviously tell people about that program. And I'm doing the embodiment thing of like, I'm obviously selling things, so I'm going to talk about making sales, and I'm obviously doing a business, so I'm obviously going to talk about aspects of that too. So there's parts of that I can kind of sell every day. And then the final thing is the book sales. So I've been selling books throughout the month for like just with my regular strategy of like, I put out content, I make sure it leads to my sales funnel, I make sure it does all that stuff. But then a couple of other things that I'm planning to do is, obviously go on stories more, reshare some of my posts more regularly. I'm going to do the events at the end of the month, and I have the books ready for that, and I have the catalogs ready for that. Which my thought process is like, you can either buy books at the event, and if I run out of books, you have the catalog, so you can go home and buy a book. Or if you have not decided if you want my book, you can take a catalog anyway, and I could make sales like next month from that. So it's just like, it could work either way. And I'm also going to be doing an ad campaign for my upcoming release once I get my first look finalized and ready, because it's going to lead to that. So that's kind of my strategy, is like, there's something in the works there as well for that. So that's like essentially all the different sales activities and things I'm doing. And as you can tell, they're all a little bit different, right? And so that might feel very complicated, but it's like, what I did is, instead of focusing on like, okay, I need like a sales strategy that I can work on repeat, that is gonna, bring in sales, I really decided like, what are the offers I want to sell, and then built sales strategies around those instead. And that felt a little bit easier, because I could actually get behind the offer, so it was easy to build a sales strategy in response and stick to it. It's a lot harder to build out a sales strategy and then go, this is going to only work for these offers, and then not want to sell the offers and therefore not want to implement the strategy, right? Especially with the one-on-one, like that's a perfect example. If I had just stuck with that, like that was a perfectly fine sales strategy, but I would have gotten so bored that I wouldn't have actually done it. So it made sense to add other things in. So that's kind of what I've done with that. I talked about making the daily sales plan, so did that. I talked about not hiding behind the free content and being more unapologetic about sales in general, and talked a little bit about making it fun again. I think like other things in relation to that are like, for example, I just gave myself permission to stop being so rigid with it. Stop being like, it has to look like this, the product suite has to look like this, the sales strategy has to look like this, because that just kind of really took all the fun out of it, and it stops me from figuring out, what do I actually want to sell? In my brain, it would be like, all right, we're going to launch this program as scheduled, as planned in this month. And then sometimes I'd get there and be like, I don't really want to sell this right now. And then it would be like, well, I have to do it because I told people I was going to do it. But it's more like, if I just lean into, like, there's multiple solutions. There's like, A, you don't sell that thing, you sell something else. Or B, you add more offers in so that you have more fun selling the collective amount, right? So again, with books, it's like, if you are, I think like a big challenge with authors is that if you're launching a book and you're like, that's what I got to focus on to establish product awareness of that book, you can get bored talking about the same book all the time. And that's very easy to do if you have a really long launch going on. So sometimes what makes it more fun is to be like, yes, I'm going to talk about this book and I'm going to have the launch as planned, but I'm also going to weave in these other 2 books just to make it more fun for myself and to make it more fun for my audience. Like, I heard this great thing the other day. This really helped it in my brain, where imagine if you went to a restaurant and they were like, oh, do you want to eat here? This is the one thing we're offering at the moment. This is the only thing you can order. It would be like, you either want that or you don't, right? So it's kind of the same thing with books. It's like, if you went into a bookshop and like, there's only this one book that you can buy, it would be like, well, I either want that or I don't. So if you can put more books in the works to sell regularly, it's going to feel so much easier for you, and it's going to be more responsive for your readers. It's going to be more fun for your readers. They're going to be like, what is she selling today? What book is she talking about today? How can I have more fun with that? Like, they don't want to hear about just one author, especially because like a lot of the time they want to buy more than one book. So that's something that I think is really helpful. Another thing is like trusting the intuitive ideas. So if I had been like, oh, I have these ideas for 2 new programs which have been selling really well, and if I was like, I can't launch them right now because I have to focus on one-on-one, I'd be literally kicking myself in the foot. It would be like I would have lost so many sales this month. So it's like, if you get the intuitive idea for something, do it, and like give yourself permission to do both if you have to. Another thing is like I've been saying, respond to what people are actually asking you. So a lot of the time when someone says, what do you think of this? Or how do I do this? Or, you know, like, do you have something for this? I've been writing it down so I can do a mini training about it and lead it back to a relevant offer. Or I've been just taking note of it to be like, maybe I can do something on that later. So just like taking note of what's happening every day and then promoting what actually lights you up and excites you. And this is why I'm a bit like, for me as well, like again with the menu example, it's like it also benefits you to be like, okay, like wake up one day and be like, what do I want to sell today? Instead of being like, I have to sell these things, these 3 things that I've committed to. It's like you can just say, well, I only feel like talking about this one offer today, and I know I have 3 offers, but this is the one I want to talk about. That's fine. You want your energy to be behind the sale. You don't want to be like, well, I have to talk about all 3 offers or else I'm failing. Just talk about the offers you want to talk about, and that gives you a huge permission slip as well. So mindset work, that's the final thing I want to talk about, and then I want to go into numbers, is, so first thing is that I made sure I've been doing this once a month. I find this to be really helpful, is relook at all my pricing and really get confident in my pricing every month. Not because I'm not confident in my pricing, but sometimes I forget why I've priced something a certain way, and then that's where I give myself room to doubt it if someone asks about that offer. So I have a spreadsheet where I have all the pricing in order of, you know, the offer and the value and whatnot. And it helps me remember like, oh, it's priced this way because obviously like that's the value of it. That's what they're getting in it, blah, blah, blah. I've gone through this and I know that the pricing is aligned. So I just like to look at it once a month and go, that's why this is priced this way. And that way I feel confident about it all month long. I like to record evidence that it's working. So this isn't just sales. It can be like, for example, like, oh, someone is responding to my posts. Like that means people are seeing it, or people are asking about this offer, or people are, I don't know, like engaging with this thing and liking it. I see all of that as evidence that it's working. Like the first day that I announced my offers, I didn't make any sales on the first day that I announced my offer, right? For those offers specifically. But I made sales after a couple of days of talking about it. So if I decided on the first day, oh, no one wanted this because they didn't jump in the first 24 hours, that would have been detrimental, right? So it's like just keeping that confidence around it and being like, well, are people responding to it at least? Like I got a lot of people asking about it, which showed me there was interest. So I'm like, well, obviously keep talking about it, right? And even if they don't ask, like you have to have that confidence for yourself anyway. And then asking myself, like, what I want to say each day about my offers, instead of thinking it has to be like this. I have to talk about the value and I have to talk about the inclusions and I have to talk about this and that. I just literally ask myself, what do I want to say about it every day? I want to talk about this. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about why I did this. I want to talk about why we do it that way. Those are the things that are going to sell your offers. And then instead of locking in on a strategy, lock in on the offer and then build a strategy around it. That was a mindset shift as well. So I'm going to check comments in a second to make sure I haven't got any questions, but feel free to drop them if you have questions so far. Before I check them, I want to quickly go over numbers. So just to show you the difference in how well this is working, right? So in May, And the difference in May is like, I was at my mum's wedding, so I planned for it to be a passive month anyway. But I was really not engaged in my sales in May, like at all. I was like, all right, for like the first 3 weeks of the month, which is a long time, I'm gonna just sell like my mini course, Write Like a Business, right? Which was, I think I had it on sale for like $77. It's usually $127. And that was like, that's the only thing I'm gonna sell for the first 3 weeks, and thought to myself, you know, whatever sells is great. I think I sold one. Like, I thought to myself, I might get 5 or 10 sales, and I got one. And I mean, I only talked about it a couple of times a week, and like, there just wasn't a lot else to buy as well. So I had that going out, and I then was launching Bestseller Energy towards the end of the month, which I gave myself a 2-week launch for that. And then I also put out the bundle, right? So I made, you know, a couple of sales throughout May, and then some of it was reoccurring revenue. And I had a couple of inspired moments of like active daily selling, but that wasn't really what happened. So a lot of it was passive, and I ended up making $1,330 over the 30-day period, which is like, okay, that's fine. And it wasn't bad. It was just like, that was what happened through passive sales. So that was over 30 days. In June, which has only been 15 days, so half of that time, I have made more, right? And that's from doing multiple offers, doing it multiple ways. So I've already made $1,642 over 15 days in June from selling all different things, selling lots of different things. And I already anticipate that that's going to go up to $2,400 by next week, because I have 2 pending sales that I know are going to come in that are big sales. So, you know, that by next week, that's already going to be doubled of what I made last month. And by the end of the month could go up even more. And so it's like, this is definitely what's working for me at the moment. And I'm not saying like, take this and do exactly what I'm doing because that will work. What I'm saying is like, this is what's working for me, and this is why, because this is how I feel about it. But if you want to take like ideas from this that light you up, if you're like, oh, maybe I should try selling multiple books per month, or maybe you're thinking, oh, maybe I should try selling a few more ways, or maybe I should try that mindset shift, like whatever is landing for you, take that and run with it to help you make more sales every day, because I really want you to be able to do that. Okay, let me check out the comments. Do we have any questions so far? I don't have many comments, but let me know if you have questions. I'm also going to put this in my other Facebook group. So I recently started up another Facebook group called The Abundant Author, and I'm going to go put this over there because we're talking a lot about business stuff as well. So I think that could be helpful for over there. Just going to hang out for 1 minute and see if we do have any questions, but if we don't, I will tell you guys about Royalties That Rise. I hope you guys have found this kind of helpful to hear though, and get some insights about. Let me know if you had a big takeaway as well. Need to rewatch because I'm distracted with my son, so no questions just yet. Perfect. Well, that's great. And I would recommend rewatching because I did just drop a whole bunch of info on you. So if you want to take notes, definitely do that too. Okay, so that was basically the whole live. That was everything I wanted to go over so far. This is a lot of what we're going to cover in Royalties That Rise as well, which is going to be a masterclass. So what this is it's a masterclass where we're going to talk a lot about like the energetics of sales, how to take daily sales, ways you can sell your books, like all that stuff, figuring out what feels heavy versus what feels easy, helping you to find your ideal sales strategy. We're just going to talk about a lot of sales stuff. And the way that it's different to the launch course, like I said, like you can integrate passive sales with active sales, and launching is more of like, it's not necessarily passive, but it does run on like, I help you build out a sales process that will work over time and work on repeat, which means that over time, you're going to be drawing in new readers, converting them, warming them up to buy, and you're going to be really focused on like strategies that will work in the background. So it is essentially like more of a passive sales system that's going to work for you. And I do recommend that you still do that because it also does the work of building your readership and establishing your product in the market. We cover a lot of basic foundational stuff in the launch course. But how it's different to this program, Royalties That Rise, like Royalties That Rise is more about making active daily sales in between. It's about using and leveraging that sales strategy and then building off of that to go, and we're going to make sales this way and that way and the other way. And this is how we're going to make it feel easier. Ever since I simplified my book sales strategy, it has felt way easier to keep up with. It's felt a lot more fun. I get more DMs. I get more book sales every month. And so it just works really well at the moment for me. And so that is really what I wanted to go over in this program. It's going to be all about like daily sales, getting into the habit of selling all the time, especially if this is something that you struggle with. You might like, for example, like if you're good at launching, right? And you kind of know like, okay, like when I have a cover reveal, I talk about my book, and when I have ARCs, I talk about my book, and when I have pre-orders, I talk about my book, and when we're coming up to a launch day, I'm going to talk about my book maybe three or four more times per week. And like you're good at selling, but you don't do it all the time, or you just struggle to think of like, how can I sell my book today? Or I have a backlist, how can I integrate that more? If you're struggling with those kinds of activities and figuring out how do I get on board with selling multiple ways per day, how do I find the time to do that, how do I balance the passive with the active, this is what's going to help you figure that out, because that's really what we're going to focus on. So after the masterclass, we also have a 12-week program following. This is all kicking off in August, by the way. So plenty of time to kind of like jump in. But over the 12 weeks, my goal is really to give you ideas for how to sell. So I want to every week be giving you 2 to 3 things, like posts, for example, in the Facebook group. And this could be anything from like prompts or inspired ideas. It could be like ways to sell. It could be a challenge for you, just whatever I think is going to help you sell based on what responses I get. I have a form that you can fill out, which means you can tell me like what you want to accomplish and what you're struggling with when it comes to sales specifically. So I'm going to be looking at that as I build out the program. And essentially it's like, for example, one week I might say, okay, email, let's do this. Like, here are some ways you can do this. You can do automations, you can do campaigns. Here are some ideas. Here's some newsletters. Here's how you can make it more fun. Here's like what you can do as an upsell. We're going to talk about like lots of different things. So every week it's going to be like ideas that are going to light you up. You take what lights you up, you go out there and you do it. And like by the end of the program, my goal is that you will have figured out, like, I like to sell these things. I like to sell them in this way. I like to combine these things. This is what I'm good at doing passively. This is what I'm good at doing actively. This is what's working really well. The goal is to get into the habit and practice of doing it and test things out without having to overthink it, without getting stuck in it. This is the big thing that I think trips up a lot of people, which I also felt as I was trying to get into the practice of selling daily at the beginning of the month, which was I would think to myself, okay, like obviously what I need to do is get on stories more right now. I need to sell something every day. I need to put an offer out every day. I need to get better at finding segues into what I'm selling every day. And in the beginning, it felt difficult because I wasn't in practice with it. It wasn't something I was used to doing. And with everything that I've done throughout my business, whether it be creating content and getting better at posting content every day, my podcast, meeting my bi-weekly deadline every week, like that is stuff that over time, as I just did it more and got into the habit of doing it more, it felt easier, right? And it's kind of like, this is something you might relate to, is like when you're writing a book, you notice like when you're in flow of the story and the ideas are going and you write every day and you keep that habit, it feels easier to sit down and do it every day. But when you've stepped away for 6 months and then you try to come back, it's a lot harder, isn't it? So a part of that is mindset, and part of it is like just being in practice with it in general. So what you might find with a lot of these sales strategies is at first you might be overthinking it, going, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to put this out there. I was a bit the same with stories until I just started doing it. And I really just challenged myself to be like, put something up every day. Put something up every day, talk about something every day. And the more I did it, the more the ideas started to flow. Because once I was in practice with it, I would get all these inspired ideas for like, oh, I could share this and I could talk about that and I could also add on this. And it started to flow, right? So the goal of this program is like, I'm going to help you get it to flow. So that is what Royalties That Rise is all about. It is currently $99. It's going to go up to $222 before August. So if you want to jump in while it is currently $99, I'm going to drop a link for you. I'm going to do it when I jump off because I have to go find the link. But I'll put it in the comments, so come back and check for that if you want to jump in. This is definitely going to be lots of fun. So like I said, we're kicking it off in August, which means you also have time to fill out the form and tell me what you want to get out of the program. And we're going to have a lot of fun with it. So that is what that's all about. If you found this helpful, you will definitely find that program helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. That is basically everything I wanted to say. Pretty sure I don't have any final lingering questions here. So I will wrap this up. Hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day. I will obviously be back with another training next week and also the free call. And I will chat to you then. Okay.